Good evening and welcome. Tonight we are going to continue our read through of this National Geographic magazine, the Atlas of the Ancient World. You guys really seemed to like the paintbrush, which is great because I do too, so I'm glad you do it. We'll keep it in this series, brushing all of the maps and pictures. So for this series, I have not read the map or the segment that we're going to talk about tonight. I'm going in completely blind, discovering it along with you guys. All I've read is the title, and I accidentally read the first sentence. I got too excited to see what this was about, because we are talking about the heritage of Israel. Now, as you can see by the map, this has nothing to do with what's going on today. It's 2025. Nothing to do with that. This is ancient Israel. This is ancient Judea, so on and so forth. But we'll talk about the map later. So don't worry. None of that. This is just a history talk, right? Nothing to do with what's going on now. So, that being said, let's see what this says. The heritage of Israel. According to tradition, the Hebrews left Egypt around 1300 BCE to settle in the uplands of Canaan. Philistines and other sea peoples already occupied the coast. The Hebrews originally formed a coalition of 12 tribes, but by 1025 BCE, fear of the warlike Philistines, such as the legendary Goliath seen below in defeat, led them to unite into the kingdom of Israel. In time, that kingdom split again into Israel in the north and Judah in the south, a division that left it vulnerable. And look at Goliath here, having a bad time being beat up by David here, yanking his hair. So I can tell it's unscripted. Snatching. I'm not going to say his wig was snatched. He's not wearing a wig. That would be a line where if I rehearsed this, I would not have said that. But let's read this caption before we look at the map. It says, searching for biblical Israel. The golden age of a unified Israel lasted 80 years, from David's rise to king around 1010 BCE to the death of his son Solomon in 930 BCE. At least, that's what the biblical chronology says. Archaeologists have found structures from the era, but neither carbon dating nor pottery evidence confirms exact dates, leaving the grandness of David and Solomon's empires open to interpretation. Yeah, I've heard that in Jerusalem, at least, they've been finding lots of archaeological evidence from David's time, but nothing, I think that's like revolutionary, that like pinpoints to like this was a real thing, Goodness, where do we start on this map? So let's look at the key first, I suppose. Biblical history is in red with this little book, because it's the Bible. Archaeological interpretation supporting biblical history is a check mark. But archaeological interpretation contrary to biblical history is an X. So here we can see, I suppose, all this orange. Does it say what all the orange represents? I'm going to assume this is like Hebrew territory, like Israeli territory back then. I assume, like Hebrew territory. I guess that's what this is. Okay, that's what this is. I see now. It says maximum extent of territory controlled by David and Solomon. And there's a little arrow here helping me out saying that map elements in this color represent biblical history. So we don't know like actual factual if this was all part of David's kingdom and Solomon's kingdom, but that's what it says in the Bible. And those books were written not terribly long after the fact, so there's probably some truth to it. We don't know. But let's start over here. Fortified cities. Let's see. The Bible says Solomon built everything he desired, including the cities of Hazor, Megiddo, and Gezer, I'm guessing. So here's Hazor, along the Jordan River here. There's Megiddo, very famous site. And I assume that's Gezer, not far off from Tel Aviv, Yafo. Facts. By 1960, archaeologist Yigael Yadin had identified 6 chambered gates at all 3 sites and proclaimed them built by Solomon. But this was contrary. That's the word, contrary. Israel Finkelstein argued in 1996 that evidence suggested the gates were likely built by a different ruler a century later. The debate continues. Interesting. I wonder if we'll know someday who actually built those. This says House of David. We're here at Tel Dan. So, according to biblical history, most Judean kings traced their lineage to David. Jewish prophets said the Messiah would be a descendant of David. Facts that support biblical history says a stela appearing to be inscribed with the words House of David was found at Tel Dan in 1993. But contrary, the inscription was made a century after Solomon's rule. Oh no. A few argue it may not refer to the biblical David, just any David, I suppose. Maybe it was a common name after King David. Interesting. We're here at the city of David. It is, of course, beautiful Jerusalem. So, biblical history. When David became king, the Bible says, he commissioned a palace in Jerusalem at the site of the fortress of Zion. Checks out. In 2005, Eilat Mazar uncovered a monumental building in Jerusalem and identified it as David's palace based on its location and pottery. I think that's what I was hearing about. But what's contrary to it says this date of construction is contested. The style of pottery was used over a long period. Maybe that's another one that someday we'll know. It just needs further study. Would that be interesting? Let's head down here to the ancient copper mines. Solomon's temple, as described in the Bible, was filled with gold objects that would have required extensive mines. So what checks out? It says Thomas Levy is excavating a large copper production site dating to the 10th and 9th centuries BCE, which implies a complex, centralized society existed in Solomon's time. That's happening, I guess it's Kirbat Nahas over here. But contrary says, critics say the mines don't prove the existence of an Israelite kingdom. I suppose so, right? Just because you have a mine and the story says they had a mine, it doesn't. Lots of people had mines, huh? Interesting. This says City of Two Gates. This looks like it's Kirbet Kelyafa over here in the Ella Valley near Hebron. Let's see what it says. The Bible cites a Judean border town called, oh my goodness, let me see, it's right at this dotted line, Sha'araim, or Two Gates near the Ella Valley, where David battled Goliath. Oh, that would be cool. So what checks out? While excavating ruins there, Joseph Garfinkel discovered olive pits and pottery he dates to David's time. Finding two gates, he announced he had located Sha'araim. contradictory, says with only 20% of the site excavated, some remain skeptical. Yeah, it needs further study so that we can know for sure if that's the place that they were talking about. So, yeah, archaeology is always very important. Not just, to get cool artifacts, but to confirm legends and verify ancient history. Because some people say that David didn't even exist, that Solomon is just mythical. Because there's no hard evidence of them actually existing. So that's why we need more study, I'd say. I would want to know if they are real. I'm not Christian or Jewish, by the way, or Muslim. I don't follow any religion that's even slightly tied to the Bible, but I think they were real, to be honest. I don't see why not. But that's my opinion. You can disagree if you choose. I won't be mad if you do. Not at all. What other cities can we see on here? We can see Damascus. There's Nablus. There's Haifa. There's Amman. Of course, Damascus, capital of Syria today. Amman is capital of Jordan today. There's Jericho. Hebron, we talked about Beersheba right there. And it looks like other sites are right here, like An-Hazeva, looks like. And then there's some names of other kingdoms. I guess that's Moab and Edom. You can see the kingdom of Judah over here along the Dead Sea. And the kingdom of Israel down here through the Sea of Galilee, around the Dead Sea, and then up the coast past Tel Aviv. And then also we have El Arish here in Egypt on the Sinai. The Gaza Strip you can see right there. There's Gaza City. I mean, this is the Gaza Strip here, but it looks like it was all this up here too. They not part of Israel. Same up here in Lebanon. So you can see Beirut, the capital today. Tripoli's up there. Interesting. Turkey up there. That's old Antioch, it was called back then. They even put Lake Assad on here, which definitely didn't exist back in the day. Because, yeah, you can really see they put in the little dotted lines here are the maps today, right? You can see Jordan, really prominent, right? It's Jordan. Yeah, because you can see Gaza outlined there, the Negev outlined there. Interesting. Neat little map of overlaying what's around today and what was around back then. Oh yeah, you can see right there Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, Syria. The more I look, the more I notice. Interesting. And look, they even differentiated Cyprus and Northern Cyprus. Not a lot of maps do that. Let's move on. Let's see what else is in this Israel section. It looks like Megiddo. I don't know if that is. I could be wrong. Looks like it. Let's see what it says. The search for a homeland. One of the oldest monotheistic religions, Judaism is said to have its origins in the journey of Abraham and his clan of nomadic herders to Canaan, the land between Egypt and Lebanon. Their descendants' attempts to find a permanent homeland met with opposition from rulers such as the Romans, who expended considerable energy crushing Jewish rebellions, including the revolt of the fortress of Masada. That's what I meant. I meant to say Masada, not Megiddo. Masada, in 73 CE. In that battle, 960 rebels unalived themselves rather than be captured by Roman soldiers. Despite this early enmity, Jews were granted Roman citizenship, and their religion was recognized in 200 CE the more tolerant era ended after Christianity became the official religion of the Roman Empire in the 4th century CE. Yeah, Masada, not Megiddo. Big difference. Masada was this big fortress up here that was like the last stronghold in the big battle of the Romans conquering Israel. And they sequestered themselves up here. Once they realized they'd lost, they left it, let's say. What was I researching? It was ages ago, and I was researching this, and I was watching a video of this boy having his bar mitzvah here, and it's like, that's kind of a hardcore bar mitzvah. My goodness, what an extreme place to have that. But, yeah. Sad history here, but very important. And as you can tell, the whole fortress was destroyed by the Romans. Moving on, though, talking about Nebuchadnezzar II. Let's see what this says. King Nebuchadnezzar II, who lived between circa 634 to 562 BCE, was a builder, a destroyer, and, according to some sources, a werewolf. That came out of nowhere. Anyway, the eldest son of Babylonian king Nabopolassar, Nebuchadnezzar quashed several rebellions, including one in the state of Judah. There, Babylonian troops stormed Jerusalem, razed its temple, and carried Jewish captives to Babylon. The city, however, was far from a prison. Nebuchadnezzar, we'll look at over here, had transformed it into a metropolis of palaces, temples, and roads, such as the processional way, which the picture up there is from. According to legend, flowers draped the city's immense walls, forming the famed Hanging Gardens. The king's later years were apparently marked by mental illness. According to some hostile religious sources, he ran into the wilderness to live as an animal for 7 years. Goals. Wow. In some accounts, he literally became an animal before regaining his human shape and returning to Babylon and sanity. Yeah, I don't think those happened. Just thinking logically. Look at this snarling lion here on this brick, I guess, wall. Did I assume? Big eyes there. Big teeth. It is mean here. Look at this pretty color. Last episode we talked about the Hanging Gardens, and someone commented like, well, I don't see why they couldn't be real. And I agree, just so you know. I'm just saying that there's no evidence that the Hanging Gardens were real. Kind of like, talking about the other page about David and Solomon and all that. We can't prove it happened, but I believe the Hanging Gardens were there. I wouldn't see why not. It's just that there's only one source that said they existed. So here is Nebuchadnezzar, probably in the Hanging Gardens by the looks of it. All the flowers here, looking out on the Euphrates, looking at Babylon. Thinking about going feral. Just being like, how about I just go to the woods? What if I just left all this and just lived in the woods? Maybe he did. I don't know, but I don't know, highly unlikely that he just went feral for 7 years. And of course, not literally turning into an animal. I don't think he was a werewolf. Just saying. We can speculate on things in history, but I'm pretty sure the werewolf story is not true. We're definitely never going to find evidence of that. Just because that doesn't happen. But, interesting. I didn't know that about him. That apparently he just snapped. Said, I'm going to the woods. Kind of like me moving to Idaho. Being like, I'm just going to go live in the woods now. I'm just going to go in the trees for a bit. Do you think the soldiers over here are like, waiting for him to just be like, bye. Going to the forest. And they're like, is he gonna snap? I don't know. But anyway, that's it for tonight. Interesting little map. Let's peek and see what's next. I actually don't know what's next. Let's peek and see. Persian dynasty. So that's exciting. Can't wait for that. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this style of content, please consider subscribing. Because we're going to talk about Persia next. It's pretty cool. It's a neat history. I'm about to film the video you're going to see tomorrow about Iran. We're going to talk a little bit about Persian history. Just a bit. So I hope that you found this video to be relaxing and educational, and I hope that you have a good night. Good night. Good night. I just had a thought real quick that if you leave any comments that are hateful toward anyone, any group, I delete them. So if you want to get that off your chest,